In the beginning, God created man and woman in His image. In marriage, His purpose for mankind is on display, and He declares that it is very good indeed.
Hello and welcome to the Very Good Marriage Podcast. I'm Sean Robertson.
I'm Athena Robertson.
So in case you weren't aware, we're married. This is my wife. In the last episode, she shared her story of how she became a Christian and then sort of how that journey took her to almost our present state of being. So I'll share my story today, and that hopefully will catch us close to up to the present. That'll get us pretty close to the pin anyway. So without further ado, the story of Sean. So my story started off with, again, just a childhood full of just normal stuff, mostly, but again, non-Christian upbringing. So the earliest recollection I have of anything church-related in my life is when my parents got married. My stepdad was raised Catholic, and I had not been baptized as a child or an infant or anything like that. So I got baptized, I think it was like the day before my 6th birthday or something along those lines. So I always had this like thing hanging on my door that said that I was baptized that day. So that was like a daily reminder of the fact that maybe I'm a church guy, or maybe Jesus, whoever he is, loves me or something, right? So I had some exposure to church through that for a couple of years. So my stepdad took us to the church that he had been going to in our hometown, and again, he would bring me to, what is it, catechism or something? Yeah, is that what it is when you are trying to take First Communion?
Yep.
Yeah, so I would go to these classes, and I remember doing that, and I would pray every now and then when I was a kid, and I don't know that I really knew what I was doing, or that I didn't really feel necessarily like anybody was listening to me. I think I just did it because it was kind of a thing that people were supposed to do, right, if you were in church. But around age like 8 or 9, really, I just kind of made the decision that I didn't want to go anymore, and being that, it was not a strong believing house, that decision was fine, so I didn't have to go anymore at that point. And really, being out of that environment and in the world, definitely crafted a different narrative in my life from that point forward. So, I, again, got into relatively normal stuff. I was always a weird kid. I got into relatively normal stuff for, I guess, me. But if you know me, then you know what that means. But I was pretty innocent for the most part as a younger child. But when I got into high school, I really was trying to figure out a way to fit in, because again, I was a pretty weird kid, and you don't really make a whole lot of friends when you're a weird kid, right? I always had other friends who were also kind of weird, on the margins of society, and they were pretty good kids too, but just weird. So I was really looking for more of an in-group, somewhere to actually like spend some time and, cultivate more friendships and things like that. And so I was kind of like a circle bouncer. I would kind of jump in with one group of friends and then with another group of friends. And, so I kind of found my way into and out of, multiple different groups in high school and after high school too. So I really kind of got into music with one of my groups of friends. Another group was bigger into like sports and stuff like that. So it kind of like fit a couple of my different, sides of my personality. But really after high school, I kind of gravitated towards music. That was kind of the big thing for me. So I played in a band for a while, and we were doing some pretty like heavy, hardcore stuff. And all the things that we were doing were intentionally offensive. So we were trying to bother people with what we were doing. And I don't know if it ever worked, but it was funny to us, so we just kept doing it, right?
I've heard stories. It worked.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Yeah. Because it's not something I want to be good at, but it's something I was good at, right? So unfortunately, that's part of my story, but it is part of my story. So I got really wrapped up in that, and it just kind of became a normal thing for me to just be okay with being offensive, right? So I would just kind of say things or do things that were gonna rub people the wrong way, and I didn't really care necessarily how they took it, as long as I got a laugh out of it. And that just kind of shaped a lot of who I was from that point forward. So even as I kind of fell out of the like hardcore music scene and more into the party scene, where I was just drinking and hanging out with my buds and watching sports and going to bars and all that stuff, right? I still was kind of the guy who you had around because you never knew what you were going to get from him, right? I was kind of a wild card in that way sometimes, so I would just kind of do dumb things and, say dumb things, and, it was good for a laugh for people, so they kept me around. But, I didn't really have anybody that I would say was a really close friend through any of that, right? I had people that I spent time with a lot. Usually it was shoulder to shoulder at a bar, or playing a game or something like that, right? But not a whole lot of people that knew a whole lot of depth of Sean, right? It was all kind of surface level. We had superficial conversations, and I probably knew more about them because I was actually a pretty good listener. I got to know people pretty well just by listening to them and letting them talk. I know it doesn't seem like I can do that sometimes, but I was a pretty good listener for the most part. So I got to know other people, but maybe by design, I just didn't really let people into me because I felt like if they knew me, they wouldn't like me. And that again became another narrative that was very heavily crafted in my life. This whole idea of rejection, right? So I had this deep-seated fear of being rejected, and I don't know where it comes from, but again, there's childhood trauma stacked up in pretty much every story that comes through in your adult life. So I'm sure that it is embedded in some childhood trauma, but again, not gonna go super deep into that because this is not a therapy session. So anyway, so again, this narrative of just superficial relationships and fearing rejection kind of became my go-to way of approaching relationships. So if I felt like I was getting close to someone, I would have to make this calculated decision about whether or not this person could reject me, or if there was less of a chance that they would, I'd maybe let them in a little bit more, right? So that's kind of how I approached a lot of things. And I just really didn't let a lot of people get close. The people that did get close, ultimately, either I hurt them or they hurt me. And, that's just kind of how it went, right? So there's more walls being built, and ultimately that led me to almost like this isolationist mentality where, I was okay. Like I would still kind of do the things that I did before. Like I would go to the bar and, hang out with my buddies or whatever. But I really just kind of, otherwise I would hole myself up, and I really didn't go anywhere or do anything, and just kind of shut the world out. I didn't really want to be in a relationship or anything like that. It was just more like, I know I've got some stuff going on that is not okay, and I need to fix it. So before anybody is going to be okay with who I am, I need to be okay with who I am. So I felt like I was going to do this like deep, deep digging into who I really was and try to figure it out, but didn't really get very far. So
I'm not sorry.
yeah. So back in, what was it, 2011, right? So I was working at Lowe's for 4 years. The store that I worked at was closing. I'd made the decision at that point I was going to go back to school. Again, one of the other narratives in my life was always that people saw a lot of potential in me. And I don't know if I had a fear of not living up to it, so I just didn't try or whatever it was, right? I mean, again, not therapy session, but there was a lot of people who constantly told me that I could be doing better or I could be doing more or that I was so smart or whatever it was, and I just felt like, at that point when the store closed, maybe I need to start believing in myself and do something that's going to be good for me. So I had this plan to go back to school. Well, that's when the train got derailed a little bit, and again, not sorry, right? So that's about the same time that Athena and I started really connecting, and then we ended up moving in together. And I did go back to school, and I did end up getting a degree through all that, even with all the change in life. So it took me a lot longer than it probably would have had I not made that decision. However, no regrets. Everything is great, right? So now we're in a relationship. We're together, right? So I let Athena in right away because I saw something in her that just made me feel comfortable. So I let her in deeper than I let anybody else before, but still not deep enough, right? So she didn't really know as much as she thought she did. There was a lot that was still kind of buried and suppressed and things like that. And really, I thought, this was kind of a chance for me to be a new person and to just kind of bury and forget that those parts of me were there. And again, just because you bury it doesn't mean it's not there, right? It just means that there's fresh dirt over the top of it, and somebody can discover that and uncover it pretty quick. So anyway, it didn't happen that quickly, but eventually we'll get there. So, we got together. We got married pretty quickly within the first couple of years of being together. Had our first son the same year that we got married. So there was a lot of change in my life during that time. I turned 30 years old, got married, had my first kid. I'd been with her for a couple of years at that point. Around that same time was when I think I got my degree, maybe like a year or two after that. But, so there was a lot going on, and, it was good that I had distraction, right? There was a lot of things going on in my life that distracted me from having to deal with any junk. And at that point, I feel like it was pretty well tamped down. It was pretty suppressed. So after we had our second kid, I think that's when things started really kind of coming out. So there was more stress, more tension. Obviously, it's a lot more difficult to have 5 children than it is to have 4 children, and it's more difficult to have 2 small children than 1. So there's a lot of things coming up at that point. Lots of change in our family, lots of change in my life at work. There's promotions and things like that were on the table. Ended up happening. It pulled me away from the family for a while, and that was a weird time. So Emmett was born in 2016, our son. That's our youngest. So he was born in 2016, and within a year, less than a year of him being born, I had an opportunity to take a promotion at work, but it involved some travel while I was training, and then it also, when I took the promotion, ultimately pulled me to a different state. So I was living in a different state, away from my family for a while, and the
You
goal
were
was
trying to move with.
yes, the
Yeah.
goal was to get them there with me. But as Athena shared in her story, there was still contact with the older kid's dad. He was still involved in their lives. It just didn't seem like it was going to work out. So I was there for about 7 months, and we ended up just kind of having a discussion. Is this something that we can do long term? I was seeing my family for 2 days every 12 days. So out of every 14, I'd see them 2 days and then go back for 12, see them again 2 days, and that was miserable. I'm definitely a homebody. I'm a big family guy. Like I really enjoyed being around my family, and being away from them like that was just, it was gutting.
Yeah, it was hard.
So I made the decision to come back, and really I think at that point is when a lot of these things started coming out of me. I had gotten this promotion. I felt really good about, working my way up to that point, and then I basically just had to hand it back and kind of stick my tail between my legs and take a job that didn't pay nearly as much, that I didn't like really at all.
Yeah.
And it really just kind of brought out the worst in me at that point. I started feeling more just depressed on a daily basis, just kind of defeated, deflated, felt like there's really no sense of purpose for me anymore. Really tried to find joy and happiness in my family at that point. So this is around like 2018 to 2019. So I was trying to find more joy in my family. But really that's, as Athena shared, that's around the time where she started really kind of pressing in and really looking for more connection with God. And that's not what I was looking for at all. So, again, having been an atheist my whole life, essentially outside of those maybe couple years as a kid where I was in catechism and praying and whatever. Aside from that, I basically, I was an atheist my entire life. So as she got closer to God, I just saw in her, this is not the woman that I married. I married fun-loving Athena that liked to do the things that I like to do. And she was pulling back from all those things. And I just felt, I felt really slighted. I felt like she was dishonest because she was changing. And really, again, self-reflecting now, it was really more because she was changing for the better and I was not. Mm-hmm. Things in my life were not good and they weren't getting better. And for her, her spiritual walk with God was obviously improving her situation, even if it didn't look like it. On paper, it really was. So, again, for a couple years, she really was kind of out of church, just doing it on her own. So we kind of drifted through, I wouldn't say our marriage was good at that point, but it was stable. And then really, again, after COVID hit and she started going to the church that she started going to that she mentioned in her video. Really, that's when I think the wheels kind of fell off, and I was like, "Get me, get me out of this. This is crazy." I did not marry some Bible thumping, church going weirdo, right?
I'm so glad I can laugh at that now.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad I can say it and know that I'm not held accountable for thinking it anymore.
No, you're just as much a Bible thumping.
Yeah, we'll get there. Anyway, so yeah, I'd always, just kind of rewinding a little bit, I'd always told her, if she wanted to raise the boys Christian, I'd support that, because obviously I understood that being raised not as a Christian is very depressing, and if there was a way that they could avoid that, even by being tricked into believing in this God of hers, whatever, So I was kind of just okay with it, supported it, but I didn't really want to have a hand in it, right? I didn't want to be, anybody that guided them toward it. So, she'd always, every Sunday morning, start getting ready for church, and I'd be in my PJs. Packer game today, sorry, not coming, or whatever excuse I'd come up with. And every once in a while, I would feel guilty enough, and I would go along with her. And I would just tell you that every time I was there, it felt different. It was definitely a different experience than any of the other churches that we hopped around in, and I could tell that there was something different about this place. But first of all, there's a bunch of people speaking in tongues, and that was really weird to me. So didn't like that. But
I'm remembering when you asked me. Your mom, he was like, "What is this?" Laying his hands. They're praying for people. Shut up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Makes me laugh every time.
So again, the pastor there is wonderful, and we got to know some of the people there. Again, very superficially for me, especially, but the pastor was so kind, and there's many times when he would just approach me and say, "Hey, Sean, I just wanted to offer to you, if you ever wanted to do a Bible study to learn more about God's Word, I'd be more than happy to walk you through that." And I always, appreciated the pastor coming to me. I always thought that was very kind of him to do that. So oh yeah, thank you very much. I'll let you know if I'll take you up on that, knowing full well that that is never going to happen, right? So, fast forward a little bit. So Athena shared her story about when she spoke in tongues, and that was kind of like the pivotal point in her journey. It was also a pivotal point in our marriage. So around that same time was when I just realized, like, this is not going to end well. This marriage is not going in the right direction. She's going off into a religion that I don't believe in, and I'm basically encountering a dead end in my life. So later that year, I got a promotion at work, and that was kind of the saving grace for me at that point. At least it gave me some distraction, something to focus on other than my failing marriage and all the junk that we had going on in our home. So over the next probably 6 months or so, things just got progressively worse at home. So I really was just kind of pouring myself into work, and things were going fine at work. They really appreciated the work that I was doing in this new role, and I got some recognition for it. But as things were deteriorating in my marriage, I started really just letting the trauma boil up in me, and eventually that manifested into me making some bad decisions. So I started getting to the point where I would use my phone to look up images. At this point it was me just kind of talking myself into, okay, these images are of clothed people. This is not the same as looking at people who are nude, right? Mm-hmm. So I started looking at these pictures, just thinking that those are okay. And eventually, of course, where does that lead you? There's more, right? So those are the decisions that I was making at that point. I was probably drinking a little bit more at that point than I had in a while. So I had gotten an OWI actually right when Athena and I got together, and really wasn't much of a drinker at that point. Every once in a while, I'd have a little bit too much, but most of the time it was very minimal. Didn't really drink a whole lot. So I was drinking a little bit more often. Again, just kind of medicating the pain that I had in my life. I remember I won that award that I mentioned, and I got the award, and I remember just looking at it and just hating it. I despised this award that I won for the work that I was doing, which was just a distraction from how crappy my life was at that point. And at that point, that was kind of, again, another pivotal point for me where I just realized, like, now not even work is satisfying me anymore. I literally have nothing, right? So this is towards the end of 2023. No, I'm sorry, 2024. So I'd gotten that promotion in 2022.
It would have been 2023.
It was 20. Yeah, I'm sorry. It was 2023. So towards the end of 2023. So we got to a point where really I just basically shut down. I was depressed. I was not doing well. Athena had been trying for a long time to get me to just open up to her, and I wouldn't. So I remember one day she told me that she just kind of threw her hands up and said, "Okay, God, I can't do this anymore. He's yours. You got to deal with him because I can't." So she didn't really talk to me for, about a week at that point.
Not out of bitterness. I feel it wasn't like a bitterness. It wasn't like I don't want anything to do with him anymore. It was, God, I need you to take the reins because I've been trying and I need to release this control to you. He's yours. And we'll get to more of those intimate conversations that I had with God because they were really important and really pivotal. But just so it doesn't sound like I was like, fine, forget you. This
is my story.
Right.
Okay,
I know.
So I'm just kidding.
It was Lord, help. It was a desperate,
yeah.
Lord, I'm releasing this control to you because I've been trying to control this and I've been trying to get him to wake up and I can't wake him up. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it worked. So towards the end of that week, I remember, I guess I'll reverse a little bit. So my job requires some travel just in the state. I don't really go out of state very often, but I drive quite a bit. And my longest drive that I make regularly is about a 2-hour drive. And there's a couple times prior to this where I was making this drive and there's one turn where I have to follow this specific county road and it requires you to go up and kind of do this big loop around, like this big bend, right? And I just remember thinking, if I just either didn't turn my wheel or jerk the wheel a little bit when I'm going over this, my family would have a lot of life insurance money and they'd probably be a lot better off without me because right now this is not working. So I had those thoughts going through my mind. So this one specific day I was talking about my job was taking me to that store. And I went to say goodbye to Athena that morning. And
we had just gotten into that big fight. The only fight we've ever had that was like fight, like yelling. He like got out of the car and slammed the door. Like we didn't fight like that before this. We had just gotten into a big fight. So I was not speaking to him because I was like,
yeah,
I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to make him mad again. Then I was scared of him because I didn't know, he was a completely different person than I thought. Like I had never seen aggression towards him or from him whatsoever. So I didn't understand what was happening. So I really wasn't talking to him.
Yeah. So that morning, I got up, got myself ready, and I had this thought in the back of my head, like, today's going to be the day. This is going to be it. So I went to say goodbye to her, and she didn't respond really at all. She kind of just like shrugged me off. So I remember I got to our bedroom door, and I grabbed the doorknob, and I stopped, and I just took a deep breath, and I turned around, and I just unloaded on her. Not violently, but emotionally.
That's not funny. Yeah. Violence is not funny.
No. I unloaded on her very emotionally and just kind of told her what my thoughts were, where I was, and just really poured it all out onto her and got it all out of me. Well,
just
not
that you
all
were
of it,
depressed.
Yeah, that, the depression and the thoughts of, taking my own life and things like that, right? So after I got done crying and pouring this all out to her, I collected myself and said, okay, well, now I have to go to work. So I did, made it safely to the store, and there was really not a whole lot of communication throughout that day. I think she kind of just let me have my space. She probably texted me that she loved me at that point, just for some reassurance. But when I got home, we obviously had more to talk about. So talked to her about what's next, and she said, so what are you going to do? I said, well, I think I need to reach out to pastor and just take him up on that Bible study, because I had some time to think about it, and I was like, you know what? What I'm doing is not working, right? I'm willing to try anything. If it means that I don't have this stuff going on in me anymore, I'm willing to try whatever it takes, right? So that's when I took Pastor up on Bible study. We had been going to home fellowship for a while. Again, some super weird stuff happened when I was there the first time, and I was like, get me out of there. But then we were doing Bible study with them. I was doing Bible study with Pastor. I was reading on my own. There was another gentleman that recommended some books to me, and I just want to mention that the first book that I read before really digging in further into the Bible was C.S. Lewis, called Mere Christianity, right? So the author of C.S. Lewis' book is called Mere Christianity. And I had always been a very logical, reason-based person, and C.S. Lewis was as well. So his writing style just really spoke to me. But I remember reading that book, and there was a point where I was reading it where my brain just kind of snapped, where he made this point about natural law, and how if you believe that you are just a random assortment of chemicals with no governing entity, that gives you this idea of what's right and wrong, morality, things like that, then where does this innate sense of morality come from? And I was reading the way that he put it, and really, again, it just kind of snapped in me. So I was always a universal truth kind of guy. So I felt like, there's no objective truth, right? It's not what's true for me isn't necessarily true for you. I think that can't work. That can't be the way that that things are. So I always believed in this universal truth, right? So universalism versus objectivism, and it made me realize that my worldview was completely incompatible with all the things that I thought. So at that point, when my brain broke, God was just right there to pour into me and rebuild me, and didn't take long. So it was a couple months, and then really just kind of pouring myself into different books, including the Bible very heavily, but doing these Bible studies and things like that too. So one day, I know I'm going kind of long here, but bear with me. So one day, we were on our way to church, because I had been doing that frequently now, just in the hopes that something would change, right? So we were on our way, and Athena asked me, so where are you right now? Like, what's going on? And I remember I said to her, I don't know. I can see it. Like, it makes sense to me. It's all right there. I just don't know how to make that the way that I live, right? So again, I was saying that I know this is true, but did I believe that it was true, right? Because if you believe a certain way, you have to act a certain way, right? I knew it was true, but I don't know if I believed it was true. So I said, I don't know how to flip that switch to go from where I am to where you are, right? Essentially. Well, we got to church. Pastor had picked a great topic for the day. I remember saying I was going to have to be hit upside the head because I'm stubborn. Pastor was preaching on hell. And basically the message was, this is what you are saved from. And that apparently was the knock upside the noggin that I needed, because I just remember a certain point. I stood up, put my hands in the air, felt this jolt of electricity running through my body, and pastor came over and prayed with me, and we were both just bawling like babies. So I got back to my seat. Athena came back over because she had been up praying as well. She came over and was like, "Okay, so how do you feel?" And I was like, "Good." And she said, "Okay, so what happens next?" And I said, I have to be baptized." So that day I was baptized in Jesus' name, and the rest is history. So there's more to the story after that, but I think we can end here for now, and then we can kind of roll from that point into the rest of our story together at that point, and where we were at that point and where we are now. So thank you all for bearing with me.
Someone told me recently that when that morning, because our pastor he's not really a fire and brimstone kind of pastor. Like when he preaches about hell, it's usually, what you're being saved from, to appreciate your Savior. Like he's not like a fire and brimstone kind of pastor. But someone told me recently that when I think he had, this might not be right. They think that he had something else, and God said, "No, you're going to preach on hell today." And he said when he got up in the pulpit and he saw that you were there that day, he was like, "Lord, I can't preach about this. Sean's in the audience. We're trying to and so I really hope that story's true, because that would make it so much cooler."
Yeah.
So we'll have to confirm. We'll have to confirm with Pastor if it was true. But
God
someone
is
just
good.
recently told me that when he tells the story of that morning, he was like, what? Sean's in the audience. I can't preach on this.
I will just tell you that I respect hard preaching. So give me a tough message and it's going to land.
He's good
It's
at
gonna
tough
land.
messages,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Anyway, so again, I know this is a longer one. Hopefully you were able to stick with it. Hopefully it was somewhat enjoyable anyway. But again, next one we will roll into our story together and what God's been doing since then. So thank you again for your attention and for joining us.
See you next time.
See ya.